So I came back from PAX East a couple of weeks ago, and it was really fun, although I did pay $12 for a hot dog at one point. I got to play some bigger games and some smaller games that are set to come out in the coming months or years. Some of this stuff is so small that you probably haven't heard of them or seen any marketing yet, but it's some really good stuff, so I want to talk about it. I'll be going over my thoughts on each game briefly here, but if you want to hear a little bit more about each game, as well as some thoughts on some of the bigger upcoming games that were at PAX this year, you can check out the full PAX episode of Code Cleric in the description. My friend Landon and I talk about everything we played on the show floor, and we have a quick interview with the developers of the first game on this list, Cyberlich. This is a first-person shooter that takes a lot of stylistic and design influences from the original Doom, and melds it with a tongue-in-cheek anti-capitalist narrative and a loud, expressive visual style. In fact, that style seems almost too loud at first glance. I remember seeing this one on the show floor and immediately gravitating to that art style, and then seeing the gameplay and the sheer amount of elements on the HUD and this joint that takes up like half the screen and the reload animation being this, and thinking, okay, alright, that seems like a little bit much. But when you actually get your hands on it, it feels a lot more natural and readable, and you quickly realize how snappy and fun it is on top of having such a strong visual identity. If I did have one suggestion to the devs, it would be to maybe tone that visual clutter down a bit, because I do think it does a slight disservice to the game when you're just looking at it and not playing it. But that complaint aside, I really couldn't get enough of this. I played the story demo twice. It was funny, salient, and looking to make a larger point despite its truly absurd nature. I also tried the arena mode twice and sucked ass at it. The weapons feel really snappy to use. The setting of this hellscape corporate office where you blow up demons with exploding soda bottles and heal yourself with hamburgers is really unique and fun to engage with. And the plans they have for the full game, which they talked to us about in the interview, sound really exciting. This one was just a blast. You can wishlist it on Steam or pre-save it on Kickstarter today. Airframe Ultra is another strange, hyper-stylized, and often violent game, but in a completely different way. Disguised as a racer that looks like it belongs on the original PlayStation, and also taking some notes from similar games from that time period like Twisted Metal, this is a game where you careen through a series of race courses and then engage in vehicular or even on-foot combat with other players. The game takes you back and forth between racing and fighting, fighting and racing, but you'll also sometimes be driving while fighting and fighting while racing. It's just pure chaos, and was definitely a tough demo to get the hang of at first. The courses are oddly shaped and hard to fully get your bearings in, and there's a level of intentional jankiness to everything, including combat, which doesn't give you conveniences like aim reticles or an easy way to maneuver and target enemies at the same time. But that initial difficulty curve is very purposeful. According to the devs, they didn't want to make a game that was immediately easy to understand and control. They wanted players to have to work a little to understand the strategies and nuances to how everything in the game works, which makes sense considering that's the same mentality the team had with their previous game, Rain World. Yeah, I bet you didn't think this was the next game the Rain World devs would be working on. Airframe Ultra is strange and feels nothing like how a modern game is expected to feel, and that's where its charm lies. You can play the same demo that was at PAX on Steam right now if you're interested. Fresh Tracks is a rhythm game that snuck up on me a little bit. It seemed really simple and almost too easy at first glance, which, I mean, there's nothing wrong with a cozy little rhythm game, I just typically prefer ones that test my dexterity a little bit. But this game can actually get kinda tense depending on what difficulty you're playing at. It is a rhythm roguelike where you ski down a hill and either avoid obstacles or slash them with a little sword, and at the end of each song you get options like which path to choose, aka which songs to play out, and which power-ups or abilities you want. There are even overall gameplay modifiers that you can earn over time that do things like change the genre of previous songs you've played through. I really like that focus on choice and variety in the music, considering this is a roguelike. You will be going through a lot of songs multiple times, and even though that's not really a problem if the soundtrack is great, having the option to mix things up on occasion is a really welcome feature. I didn't get to hear too much of the soundtrack, but what I did hear reminded me a little bit of Sayonara Wild Hearts. I can't tell yet if I'll be completely won over by it when the full game comes out, and ultimately I do think that'll play a huge part in the game's success, but mechanically it's super sound, and I like a lot of the ideas it brings to the table. You can wishlist it on Steam, and it's coming out on PS5 and Xbox as well. Love Eternal is a psychological horror platformer where you manipulate gravity to navigate through tightly designed traversal challenges. From a gameplay perspective, it's a nice, tight platformer with great sound effects, but based on the trailers and some hints that were teased in this demo, this game is also set to get weird as all hell. I don't have a ton to say about it right now because the true potential here seems to be how its narrative plays out and how that ultimately affects the gameplay as well, which, like I said, is great, but also fairly straightforward from what I played. But what I did try really piqued my interest. I'm excited to discover the weird forces behind this world and how the mystery will slowly unravel over time, especially since one of the people working on this was actually a storyboard artist for Adventure Time. There's no demo out right now, but you can wishlist it on Steam, and it should be coming out later this year. Speaking of mysteries, I played another genre-mashed psychological horror game called Sunset High, which is a choose-your-own-adventure game that predominantly takes place within a single room. The game starts off with a series of text messages between you and your high school crush, only for you to find out the next day that they've been murdered, and there seems to be some effort to cover it up. After that, the game lets you invest in different character traits in a similar fashion to Disco Elysium, and that allows you to get new information over time as the same day loops over and over. It's hard to get a good grasp of a game like this with such a short show floor demo, but I really liked what I saw out of this one. The demo is available on Steam now. Don't Wake the Beast is one of your classic 2D dungeon crawling roguelikes. You've been here, you've seen this before, except this is actually a stealth game. Your goal is to go through stealth encounters, escape traps, and solve puzzles without raising the alarm so you can steal a precious artifact that's being guarded by a beast. And then once you grab the artifact, you need to escape the dungeon back the way you came before the beast can get to you. But honestly, the craziest thing about this game was how much it reminded me of something I put together a little over a year ago. If you've seen the video on my channel where I make a new game every week, one of those weekly games was this procedurally generated Indiana Jones tomb raiding roguelike, where you worked your way through a 2D dungeon, grabbed an ancient artifact, and had to escape the way you came before the guardian of that artifact caught you. Now, it wasn't a stealth game, but it had puzzles and challenges, and you could also light torches on your way to the artifact in order to remember the exact path back to the entrance. It was just really interesting to see that kind of seed of an idea in something so much more refined and novel at PAX. And I'm really interested to see how this turns out once it's fleshed out a little bit more. You can wishlist it on Steam today. The Lacerator was a game that I didn't actually play, Landon did, but I was really impressed with its faithfulness to old school survival horror, everything from its visual style to its camera work. You can actually play the game in a standard modern camera angle or at fixed angles like an old Resident Evil game, which is a really cool feature. Your character is also just as weighty and clunky as one of those old school Resident Evil protagonists, and sometimes even more so because you can actually lose limbs in this game, and it'll apparently change the paths that you take to reach the end. I don't know if you're able to get your limbs back or how you lose them in the first place, but that idea in and of itself is really exciting. And the game's tone is also super kitschy and off the wall. Your protagonist is an 80s porn star, and the writing is this perfect blend of horror cliches and corny porno dialogue, which along with this limb losing mechanic could really set it apart from the crowd on release. There's also a section where you're talking to a cell wall and it laughs at you and grows a tentacle at some point. It's just a really weird game, but I kinda like it. And finally, a game that wasn't even really at PAX, but I got to talking with the guy who developed it, and he gave me and Landon an impromptu demo, Fish Combat Accelerated. Gotta change that name, boss. It took me a little bit to get the hang of the handling in this game, but when it clicked, I really started enjoying the fluidity of it all and how mobile I felt at all times. You play as this weird fish creature in a Tron grid world, performing platforming challenges and engaging in momentum-based combat. The way the gravity works, where you move onto walls and ceilings seamlessly, was really impressive. And I can't remember another game where I can drift as a fish. By that metric alone, it's a certified banger. The demo I played still needed some small tweaks, but I like the direction this is heading in, and I think this could be a ton of fun to master and speedrun levels. But seriously, change that name. Like I said, if you want to see my thoughts on all of these games and a ton more in a much longer format with more in-depth discussion, check out the new episode of Code Cleric. It's linked here and in the description. Would really love it if you guys went over and supported that channel. Also subscribe here for more video essay speedruns, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.